Hey guys, welcome to today's training. And yeah, this is going to be exciting because we're diving into one of the core pillars, of course, of the physical reset program, which is the training section, and especially what are we going to do on specific training days. As you already saw in the checklist, this is one of the core pillars within the physical reset for us to get you towards your desired outcome. It can be a reduction of some physical restrictions or a reduce of some physical pains that you're experiencing. Or on the other end, we're trying to maybe incorporate some skill acquisition, some physical skill acquisition, or maybe a combination of both. And in order to do so, we need to train, we need to practice, which also brings us to basically the first step of. No, no, no. Hey guys, welcome to today's training module, which is all about training and on what. Hey guys, welcome to. Hey guys, welcome to today's. Hey guys, welcome to today's training module, which is about one of the core pillars of the physical reset. So I'm super excited to dive in and show you how we're going to make sure that you're going to execute on the program to get you towards your desired state. And today we're going to dive into four major pillars, which is first determining your frequency and duration. So we have a minimal standard that we want to adhere to within the physical reset in order for us to get enough stress slash stimulus to for the body to change. Additionally, we're going to dive into how to execute and read the program. So basically, we're going to take a look at the complete sheet, how to scroll through it, how to read it, what are the parameters that we're going to work with, where you need to fill in certain things, where you don't need to fill in certain things. So taking a good look at that. And there is also a deep dive section which dives into the parameters. So every time we're talking about reps or tempo notation, I just want to give you the basic outline of what we understand in the physical reset under those parameters. So you know, okay, if we're talking about reps, this is what I mean. If we're talking about tempo notation, this is what I mean, etc. Additionally, we're diving into four training fundamentals, which will help you get to your desired state in a safe way, but also in a way that is the most fastest and sustainable way. So there are four principles that, four fundamentals. If we adhere to those, the results will definitely come. It's then a matter of time. And finally, we'll combine it into an action plan to make sure that you can keep continuously going and going and going. So without further ado, let's dive in. And what I already said and started today with is we need stress. The body needs stress, even if you feel some restrictions, if you feel some pains in certain areas. There is one thing that the body is very capable of. It is adaptation. So we need stress in order for us to for us to change, because if we don't have any stress in the body, if we don't have an actual stimulus for us to change, there's no growth, and no growth is also no change. To do so, we aim to perform around 6 to 20 sets per exercise per week. This is based on one of the biggest books around the science and development of muscle hypertrophy, from Brad Schoenfeld, and yeah, this is like a lot of the principles around or concerning volume, intensity, etc., reps. It's all in that book. And yeah, there have been numerous studies about muscle growth and adaptation of the nervous system. And yes, there are also still some minor outliers, but I would say this is the common red thread that we want to adhere to. If you stick to 6 to 20 sets per exercise per week, we will get you towards the desired state. Well, this is this range of volume, because it is a metric that we're measuring, the volume metric. This is based on two parameters, and those two parameters are the minimal effective volume, and the maximal recoverable volume. So what this really means is that the minimal effective volume is the minimal amount of volume that we need in order for us to adapt. So I want to at least get 5 to 9 sets per week per exercise, or 5 to 9 sets per exercise per week in order for the body to get enough stress in order for it to change. The maximal recoverable volume is the maximum volume that the body is capable of recovering from. So if I would do 27 sets per exercise per week, and if I go beyond that level, then I potentially be in the danger zone. What's good to know at the start of the physical reset program of your unique routine, we'll start on the lower ranges. So we'll start more on the range of the minimal effective volume. This is also because I'm going to expose you towards a lot of new materials, maybe different ways of moving, movements that you're not used to. So it's good to start at the low end, but we will progress and increase the volume every couple of weeks. This will be around 4 to 6 weeks to make sure that we don't stagnate, but we keep progressively overloading the system at the right pace. So here are small visuals that we want to have this minimal standard of volume so that we stress the body enough, and the maximal recoverable volume once you get really going, to give you the enough stimulus over time. But we also want to make sure that you don't go towards the overtraining end of the spectrum. So volume, what does it refer to? Well, it refers to the amount of exercise performed in a specific time frame. So let's say, or think of reps times sets on a Monday, for example. Or when you use weight, you can also calculate reps times sets times weight. So this is a way of us measuring the volume. And on average, this means that we need about 75 minutes per week to cover the required volume on a weekly basis, which also brings us to one of the 4 fundamental tasks of the physical reset, which is this complete training, which this training is completely about, is we want to hit that minimum of 75 minutes of training per week. There are, of course, other modules that dive into the active recovery, the sleep and reflect and review. But today we're talking really about this minimum standard for us to get enough stress slash stimuli in order for us to change. So we spend around 5 minutes on average per exercise per 3 sets or session. A lot of the exercises that will be in your routine will be about 3 sets. So we spend around 5 minutes per exercise per session. And we need at least 3 exercises per routine to stimulate enough stress for you to change and to also address your specific restrictions. This is the minimum, right? This is the minimum, and we're talking about the minimum because this also goes into one of the main things we want to focus on, which is consistency. But this is also a minimum standard for us to change, and the goal here is to develop this way of operating that allows you to be consistent. So one of the main principles of the physical reset is getting you to becoming consistent. If you already are, good for you. If you don't, then this is something you need to prioritize, because if you're not consistent, you can have all the goals in the world, but you can throw them out of the window because you will keep returning to the same spot over and over and over again. So this is what we're gonna today discuss: how to get you to develop a routine that you can hit consistently. We're going to do this by dividing it into 3 topics. We're going to determine your baseline frequency and duration. I'm going to show you how to execute and read the program. And again, we're going to deep dive into the training fundamentals. So let's start with determining the baseline frequency and duration. We already covered and discussed that we need a minimum of 75 minutes to stress the body enough for change. Well, the next step is to determine your schedule based on your time availability. You already filled in the onboarding form. This is a good sort of step on the horizon, but we're gonna create basically 2 outlines of how we're gonna structure this, which is also something that brings us to, I was already introducing, but one of the first training fundamentals of the physical reset: consistency over intensity. I already mentioned it. This is one of the most critical pillars in order for us to see the results that we want. And even though it's been popularized a lot, I think the quote of James Clear says it very beautifully. We do not rise to the levels of our goals, but we fall to the level of our systems, and this is critical. So what you can see within this basic this training fundament is that, yeah, volume is very important. As we discussed, we need a minimum of 75 minutes. We also need around 6 to 20 sets per exercise per week. But what is more important is that you can show up in the times that you don't want to. That's why we want to create this baseline. We want to create a baseline so that the moment you feel frustrated, the moment you feel demotivated, the moment you feel like today is not it, then you know I have a system in place so that I can still show up. So we have to make it easy enough so that we have a system that we can rely on those moments. So there will be also a section also in another training module where we dive into how to review this process. But first, today, right now, we're going to determine your basically the frequency and the schedule that you're going to craft for yourself. And that's also because we often expect immediately that we're going to hit our ideal rhythm in mere weeks, if not days. But this is often not sustainable. What you see a lot of the times, you get a new program, and the first 3 to 4 weeks you feel, hey, I'm super good, I'm doing the thing. And then after 4 weeks, you feel a decline, you feel a slight demotivation. Maybe you're not feeling this novelty again, and that's the moment where we want to have this system in place. So that's why I want to prioritize a routine that zooms in on the minimal effective dose, which is that baseline that we discussed, instead of the ideal effective dose. So I want you to take a couple of action steps after watching this video, and one of there are basically 3 action steps I want you to fill in. Again, you already filled in the onboarding form where you outlined the ideal amount of minutes / hours you want to spend on the physical reset program / routine per week. Well, what I want you to do is to fill that in the left side of the table. So I want you to just basically repeat what you filled in the form. How much time would you ideally want to spend on the program? What is the frequency? So how often do you want to train? And what is your ideal duration per session? That will be basically your ideal situation. And the more important part, which is this part, okay, we want to have a minimum of 75 minutes per week. Then I want you to divide that over a frequency and duration, which you can fill in your sheet. So it could be, okay, I want to do 3 times per week, 25 minutes per session. That is my minimal effective dose. Then fill that in, and now I'm going to show you in a second how to do that. But this is something I want you to play around with, like what is the minimal effective dose I can hit per week. If you even feel like 75 minutes is even too much for me right now, start lower. I rather have you work on this consistency layer first before we really dive into to getting you towards to intensify a program. Even though 75 minutes is a minimum, I know, but I want to prioritize that you are consistent first. But I'm gonna say 75 minutes here, so try to play around with the 75 minutes per week. You can also divide it into more frequent and frequent times of training sessions, but then a lower duration. Maybe you do 5 times 50 minutes, or you do 6 times 12 and a half minutes. Those are options I want you to play around with. So to summarize, hitting your ideal frequency and duration, that's a bonus. Hitting the frequency and duration when you don't want to, when you're at your busiest, that's the goal. That you have a system to rely on the moments you don't want to train. So now that we have established your frequency and duration, it is time to fill it in your Notion doc. So where are you going to do this? This is the section you already, of course, this template that you have for yourself. This is the section I want you to fill it in. So if we go back, I this is basically the same example. I filled it in right here. So this is an example of how you can fill it in. We have the training days where we want to hit a certain duration, and I also play around with mandatory and optional, which basically is me saying, okay, there are 3 days with this amount of duration that I want to hit. If I can do more, okay, that's good. That's the bonus part. If I don't, then I want to stick to those 3 elements. The active recovery will be addressed in a different program, but it will be something that you're going to do on a daily basis. So we now know how you can create a program that sets the baseline and that has a system in which that can build a system in which you can rely on. So now we're going to take a look at how to execute and how to read the program, which is also very important because we want to eliminate the time for action. And that's already something I have written here as well. Once you have determined your mode of operation, it is go time. It's time for action mode. But confusion is the death of action. And yeah, this section will really explain how to execute the program so you know what to do and when to do it. And before I'll display and explain the parameters, let me first just show you the program. So let me make it a bit bigger. Yeah, so let's dive in. So here you can see the program is very simple in the way how you can read it. You scroll down. That's you only have one option. You scroll down and you start here with the week. So you have the week explained there. This is the day and the day you're gonna execute the program. I have written out 5 days per week. This doesn't mean that you have to do 5 times per week. What it does mean that if you want to do 5 times per week, it is an option. If you want to do 4 times, it is an option. If you want to do 3 times, it's an option. If you want to do 2 times, it's an option. So it's basically you don't have to fill in every day, but it's just there if you need it. So let's now dive into what basically to read in the sheet. So we have the day, then we have this icon. This icon shows you and tells you that this is the current exercise that you're working on. So if you see a light bulb, if you see the icon of the lightning icon, it means that this is the exercise that you're currently working on. If you see there's a light bulb, that is basically me telling you that there is a new exercise integrated in your program. So that's just an FYI. Then additionally, we see the order, and I will address how to read the order in a second. What I do want you to know is that I often program the routine in a way that the A's are more of a warm-up to prime the body, to get the districts of the body, so the joints, the muscles, a bit more warmed up and mobilized, so that the B and the C section are the core identity of the routine in which we're gonna really trying to address your restrictions. And I also program often, if you have the time, this is optional, but I would highly recommend it. I also program a restoration section. So also a very big component is the recovery part of within the physical reset, and a way to restore the body or get that process already sped up a bit. That's where the D sections often come in, which I play around with the breathing techniques or with shakes. Those are all elements that are very beneficial for the body and can already speed up the recovery process. So here you see the exercise. This is all what you don't have to change or alter or do anything with. As a matter of fact, I probably assume you can't change it. Then here we have the weight. So some exercises contain a weight based on your preferences and your goals. Then additionally, we have the reps, we have the sets, we have a tempo notation, and we have rest. So this is how you should read the program, and I'll show you in a second what all the parameters mean. This is the section set 1 to 5, and often you just be working in set 1 to 3 unless I program it in a way. But this is the sheet, this is the part when you fill in how much reps you did. So let's For example, on the passive thing, I'm gonna write down how many seconds I did per set. So the only thing you fill in here is the number. You don't have to add seconds or other parameters. You just fill in the number. So let's say I did 5, I did 35, I did another 35, and then another 35. So what's being calculated automatically is this volume metric, which is again how much load we're performing on the body per session, and that is being calculated automatically. This is the one of the two parts that you have to fill in within the program. The rest is all being or one of the three elements that you fill in the program. The rest is all either locked or automatically calculated based on some metrics. Then volume is automatically measured. What I do want you to fill in is this intensity bar, because this will basically give us an idea how fast or how much challenge you perceive the exercise to be, and over time also how fast the body is adapting towards the stress that we give it. So for example, maybe the first week you feel that the passive thing is a 7, the next week it is a 6. This is something we will measure so that we have a very good perspective of how the body is adapting towards the stimulus. Then additionally, we have this beautiful, or I think it's very beautiful, at least I put a lot of time in it. We have the Notion template, and every exercise has a Notion template which it will guide towards. So if you click on it, you will be guided towards this Notion doc, and in this Notion doc per exercise, what you will see is the goal. This is better. So every exercise has a goal, it has a sub goal. So what are we primarily focusing on with the exercise? It also has details, so it mentions like, hey, these are the details I want you to focus on. And additionally, it has a video where either I give a voiceover or there is a bad and good form which you can pay attention to in your execution. If we then step back, there can be a small description per exercise. It depends a bit on how many details there are in certain exercises. In the Notion instructional template, there are a lot of details for certain exercises, and what I then try to do is just give you the gist and the most important ones, so that you, once you're like ramping up and you're in this train of action mode, then you don't have to always go back to the Notion template. Even though it is very important to do it once per week to check form, but that's something I'll address in another module as well. Finally, also a very big part, and this is also something you can fill in, it's the observational section. So we're gonna measure your performance from a quantitative perspective, but also I want you to develop this keen eye of how the body is changing from a subjective point of view, because there are a lot of things happen in the body which are very complex, and having or developing an eye and especially a language to pronunciate what it is that you're experiencing will really help your process and your desired outcome vary. It's a super useful tool once you do in the reps, especially on this observational part. That's my perspective at least. So I will now dive into the parameters. So now you know exactly, okay, this is where I need to fill in what, and also the things that you don't need to touch. So let's do a quick deep dive of those parameters. First off, we work in a circuit system. So a circuit system is basically the order of execution per exercise. So what I want you to do is I want you to do the A's, the B's, the C's, and the D's. This means that you perform the repetitions of A1, you rest, then you go to A2, you perform the repetitions of A2, you rest, that's one set. If there is one set mentioned, you do one set. If there is two, you do 2, 3, etc., etc. So you complete the amount of sets per letter, and then you move on to the next one. So once you completed the sets, the amount of sets per A1, per A2, then you move on to B1, B2, etc., etc. So that's the circuit system that we're going to work with. Then we are going to discuss what the reps mean, because there are two ways that I want you to know about how we should read the reps. The first one is that we work with exact reps or rep ranges. Exact reps means this is the amount of reps that you do per exercise, period. Rep ranges gives us a little bit more leeway to like to start for different kind of levels. So if you're very new to the materials, maybe you start on the lower end of the reps, and then eventually you progress until you get on the higher ranges of the rep. So this is a nice way to integrate a little bit more different points of entry or levels of people that are joining the physical reset program. So that's how you're gonna read those reps. So it's exact or rep ranges. Then additionally, a second part to the reps is that you'll perform the amount of repetitions per side or per movement. This means that if you see, for example, 4 to 6 reps mentioned with an exercise where you work extremity for extremity, meaning you move body part for body part. So let's say in the example here, we're working on a lying scorpion low. You work with first the right leg, then you do the left leg, and then the 4 to 6 reps means that you do 4 to 6 reps per side. If there's a window of repetitions for an exercise where you use both your extremities, so for example here mentioned the sissy squat, you go up and down in an hinged or reversed hinge position with the sissy squat. That means that you do 4 to 6 reps in total. Yes? Awesome. So then we move to the rest. I think rest is pretty mandatory. This is the amount of, not reps, rest you take between sets. So if you perform A1 and it says 60 seconds, then you rest 60 seconds before moving on to the next one, etc. Sets refers to the number of sets you have to complete before you can move on towards the next letter. And this also contains, of course, the amount of repetitions per set you have to perform. Tempo notation, this is a very important one because we have a couple of ways to interpret tempo notation. One of the most traditional ones we see in strength and hypertrophy training is the 4-digit example, where we start from a top position, and then of course this is not per exercise, but this is how you read the 4-digit traditional tempo notation. You always read it from, you start top position, you work with the eccentric phase, so you lower yourself. Then once you get to the bottom, you have a parameter or a digit, and then you go up, you work with the concentric phase, and then you have a top position hold. So what I did here, I included 2 examples which start at a different point in those in that 4-digit system, but it calculates the same phases basically. So what you can do is you can check it out. Click on, there's a video here attached. If you click on it, you'll be guided to a tutorial there. Additionally, so we have the traditional 4-digit way of reading a tempo. We also can read it by looking at a hold. So for example, the passive hang that we just discussed, you will be holding yourself, which means you do one repetition with a tempo notation of 30 to 60 seconds. So you hold that position for 30 to 60 seconds. Finally, there's also an option where I mentioned the ratio between contraction and relaxation. So for example, there's an exercise in the program where you rotate the spine and you do that on a continuous way. Then it could be that I mentioned like you do 2 seconds of activation and 2 seconds of relaxation. 2 seconds of activation, 2 seconds of relaxation. So that's also something you can expect in the program. Then we go to volume. Volume, something we already addressed. This is being measured by calculating and automatically calculating the amount of repetitions per set you do, times optionally the weight, which then is being measured into a total volume per exercise per set. Then almost at the end, we also have the intensity parameter, and this is very important. What I already mentioned is because it is a way for us to measure how the body is adapting over time to the stress that we give it. We do this by using the RPE scale. RPE stands for rate of perceived exertion, which is a fancy word for effort. So think of, okay, intensity, we're going to measure this by a scale, and intensity is the amount of effort during a session. You can think of it as the challenge of the workout. So we're going to use the RPE scale, and in the program, we try to aim for a zone of between 6 to 9. So if you go lower than a 6, that means that we're on the right track. That means that we can either we can increase the volume, we can either increase the progression, so we can take you to a next progression, or we can introduce a new exercise. If we go beyond 9, only, for example, if we work maybe in the future on some plyometrics or maybe some VO2 max, then it wouldn't be the case. But with strength and mobility training, if we go beyond the 9, if we're in a zone of 10, then we're doing a bit too much. That is also because if we do that too frequent, too fast, then we might risk injuries and also harming the body in a way that we don't want. So we want to aim between this 6th to 9th point on the scale. Then finally, something I already showed you a bit, there is a tutorial / instruction section where you can see the link on the Notion tab. If you click on it, you will be guided through the exercises, and they are often part of a tree. So you'll be guided to the tree. You click on the specific exercise that is in your program, and then you find point out details, the video, and either a voiceover or you see a good and bad form. This is very important because these will keep you progressing in the right way and also make sure that you execute the exercises in a safe manner. My recommendation is to check the Notion pages around once a week, and especially the good and bad form if you're working on type of exercise that require you to maintain a level of attention, because the devil is always in the details and there are always things that we can improve. Even I am still learning a lot. So by now we've covered your baseline of frequency and duration that you want to hit per week. We also now know how to read the sheet, what to fill in, what not to fill in. And additionally, we have zoomed in on the parameters of the program so that go over this list a couple of times if you're new to it. But in a couple of weeks, I want you to basically know, like in this program, I know how to read intensity, I know what volume means, I know what we mean by tempo notation, etc. So this gives you the total point of view. Then we're gonna finish we're gonna put the icing on the cake with the training fundamentals, because the next step is addressing those fundamentals because they will maximize sustainable results instead of achieving repeated disappointments. Because already mentioned, challenge is a part of the journey, and in fact, it is essential. Without the challenge, we won't grow. Without hardship, frustration, etc., we won't grow, and we need it in order for us to change, and especially when it comes to the body. So there are 3 or 4 fundamentals in total to stick to. I already mentioned one, that's why I said here 3. The first one is consistency over intensity. Again, this is maybe the most important habit or training fundamental you want to develop. Showing up on times when you don't want to. This is critical. So make sure to take the action step as mentioned earlier in this training, so that you have a clear baseline of, okay, this is what I want to hit per week. Second, discomfort is okay, but pain is not. So there is a very silver line between feeling discomfort or feeling pain. And also this takes a bit of time to get, by being exposed to new ways of training, to feel like, hey, this is pain for me, and this is a zone that feels discomforting, but yeah, this is the zone I want to be in. Because if we're not in a zone of discomfort, we're either in a zone of pain, which we don't want, or we're in a zone of comfort, and that's not the zone we also want to be in, because that's not when we grow. So therefore the cue is to follow this sensation of discomfort, and we do this by using the parameter, intensity parameters between the 6 to 9 zone. So if you're on a 5-4, you're too easy. On a 10, it's too hard. That's when we know that you get enough stretch, which is not too much or not too little. There is one other very important one. In the physical reset, I don't prioritize or don't focus on this one final rep. I think it's very overvalued in the fitness industry. Yes, it holds some value sometimes to push yourself towards a new physical height, or for muscle hypertrophy, for really gaining muscle, it could sometimes be advantageous. However, what I do feel is that we don't consider the cost enough from this one final rep, because what happens is we neglect strict form. Therefore, we nourish the body in a suboptimal way. So the nervous system gets primed in the wrong way. We also might damage or hurt the joints and muscles unnecessarily. So these are the downside of this one final rep. And in the physical reset, I want to prioritize that we don't do it. I'd rather have you do one rep less than one rep more, because that way we train the nervous system better, we can recover faster, and we nourish the joints and muscles in a more proficient way. So quality over quantity. Finally, know what you leave behind. And this is super important, because we thrive on novelty. Our brain is literally wired to prioritize novelty. That has some evolutionary elements to it, but this is something that we try for. If we feel or see something new, that's something we aim and prioritize. However, we need this consistency layer at first, but we also need to remind ourselves, like, okay, but if I take this step forward, if I want to progress to the next progression, what am I leaving behind? Have I implemented the details as mentioned in the exercise? Can I do better, etc., etc.? So a great way to avoid going too fast is using a rule of thumb, which is basically ranking ourselves each week. And we'll dive into it this later in the review and reflect training module. But basically it will be answering questions like, how proficient do I currently feel in executing the exercises? How well am I executing it? Can I improve some elements there? Are there things that I'm missing if I videotape myself? What do I see from my personal video versus the video that has been mentioned in the program? These things keep us honest in how we train, and especially where we are in our process. And the better we develop this, the better long term we make a change that we want. So by now, we've covered how to determine your ideal and also minimal effective routine, this baseline. We also know how to read the program and also how to execute on. Again, thumbs up. How to maximize your results sustainably by following those 4 training principles, which means that you now have all the tools in your toolbox to hit 75 minutes of training per week consistently in a way that works for you. Next up is put it into action. Here is also a link. Additionally, in the checklist, we already spoke about the checklist in your program, and that is a nice tool for you to checkbox every week to make sure that you keep on hitting these fundamental tasks every week. And if you do that, if you do hit your minimum of 75 minutes of training, if you hit your active recovery element per day, if you sleep around 7 to 8 hours per night consistently, and if you check your form and process weekly, you will get to your desired state. So let's put it into action. I hope you liked it. And if you have any questions, you can go to the school community and ask. Good luck and speak soon. Ciao.